put the number straight into the blacklist. But I haven't put it in my pocket yet. The phone actually rang again. I picked it up and was dumbfounded. It turned out to be the same number as before. I just blacklisted it. This is too bizarre. Could it be that I made a mistake just now? I suddenly panicked. Words kept coming up in my mind. Do not answer. Do not answer. I hung up the phone again and blacklisted it once more. This time I stared as the number was blacklisted. Then I stared at the screen intently. I thought to myself, now you won't be able to call in. The familiar number rang again. I was completely speechless. Right after that, the phone unexpectedly made a sound. Why are you afraid to answer my call? I was shocked and dropped my chin suddenly. The phone inexplicably answered automatically. But soon I calmed down. I thought that the other party must be a hacker. I coldly replied, "Who are you?" Unexpectedly, the other party completely ignored me. Instead, he selfishly disclosed my privacy. ZhangYi. Living in Building 240, Uelu Community, Tianjin City. Born on January 32, 2025. So accurately stating my information, I am more convinced. The other party must be a top hacker. After listening to that person's statement, my mindset actually became much calmer. Then I joked and said, I am just an ordinary civilian. What do you know about me and my information? Are you a pervert who specifically investigates respectable young men? I never expected you to continue saying that. I also know that you not only robbed Reach Prince's sanctuary. There are also 2 hot women in your house. Hearing this, I was suddenly shocked. I never expected the other party to know where I currently live. After all, the more people who know, the more dangerous it is. Who are you? What do you want? The other party noticed the change in my tone and thought they had caught me. Their tone started to become more triumphant. I also live in Yunke Estate. I know you have a lot of goods in your hands, as well as surplus goods to support a woman. So I just want a little bit of goods. Otherwise, I will expose your information. I chuckled. Just go ahead and expose it. I am not a big shot anyway. I'll even send you some naked photos. Let everyone admire my figure. Unexpectedly, the voice on the other end started to become sarcastic. How do you think people will react if they knew you were involved in the Walmart warehouse theft case? Upon hearing this, I immediately became cautious. 3 days before the apocalypse, I single-handedly looted the entire Walmart. Billions worth of supplies were moved into another dimension. But how did they find out? I pretended to be silly and clueless and said, What kind of joke are you playing? Such a large warehouse disappeared without a trace overnight. You don't think I, a warehouse manager, could do it, do you? At this moment, a greasy man with glasses sat at the table. With a smirk tinged with sarcasm, he said, I don't care what methods you use. That warehouse theft incident is definitely related to you. Even if you are not the mastermind, you must have gotten a lot of supplies as well. I am not afraid to tell you, I am the chairman of ZhangYi Group. You should have heard of Lu Fengde. I felt a chill down my spine at the mention of him. More than just heard of him. He's practically a household name. ZhangYi is panicking. Not only has the location of the shelter been exposed, but they also hold Walmart, worth billions. The secret of the supplies has also been discovered by someone. Just now, a mysterious phone call hacked into my phone. The other party not only accurately stated all my information, and he threatened to make me send him a lot of goods, otherwise he would expose a large amount of what I have. The matter of the goods being exposed and claiming to be the chairman of ZhangYi Group, Lu Fengde. I am filled with dread at the mention of this name. He is the top figure in the field of information security in China. With his expertise at this level, hacking into my phone would be a piece of cake. The mere thought sends a shiver down my spine. The entire system of this shelter is controlled by a supercomputer. Could it be that this shelter itself has already been compromised? Although this possibility cannot be ruled out, this shelter is among the top in the world. It was built by a security company, and the cost amounted to as much as $1 billion. It's impossible to completely overlook network security protection. And Lu Fengde is not in the company. The network conditions at the residence are definitely limited. There's no need to go as far as hacking my phone to protest. Thinking of this, I politely said on the phone, I have long heard of Mr. Lu's reputation. Is there anything you would like to request? Mr. Lu Fengde said proudly. You have so many resources. I only need you to provide me with the necessities to sustain my life. Not only can I help you keep this secret, and I can help you maintain cybersecurity, so that others can no longer take advantage. Of course, I will not admit any involvement with the Walmart warehouse theft case. My actions at that time were flawless. There is no way anyone will ever find out. It must be the other party trying to trick me with their words. I'm just a small warehouse manager. How could I have that kind of ability? Lu Fengde snorted coldly. Don't you pretend to be with me. I have lived to this age. What have I not seen? I won't talk nonsense without evidence. And I already have a lot of information about you through your phone network. Immediately, he said decisively, You must have the stolen goods from Walmart in your hands. At this point, I knew the truth could no longer be concealed. The only way was to silence this person. Then, pretending to be calm, he said, I do have some of the goods. However, I've mostly sold them to make money. After all, there's no place at home to store so many things. Lu Fengde felt that this was not unreasonable. After all, in his logic, there is no such thing as another dimension. I only need some basic necessities to sustain my life. I'm not asking for the moon from you. Since you can support 2 women, it shouldn't be difficult for you to support 1 more person. Moreover, I can help you maintain network security. You won't lose out. Hearing this, I'm anxious. I know this guy is capable of spreading the information. I must not ignore him. If it is deeply explored, there is a possibility that the fact about my dimensional abilities may be exposed. It will be disastrous if that happens. After all, Tianhai City hides many powerful forces. There are even powerful armed forces, even with an indestructible sanctuary now. I don't want to provoke those troubles either. I can give you some supplies. But let me be clear up front. If you dare to play tricks with me, I will not hesitate to kill you. Then Lu Fengde promptly provided them with his home address. He also lives in Yonk Estate. He asked me to place the supplies he needs at his doorstep. He also threatened not to be suspicious. Otherwise, even if he dies, your information will still be sent out automatically. After I hung up the phone, my eyes were full of killing intent. It's been so long in the apocalypse. This is the first time someone dared to blackmail me. I even wanted to grab a gun and rush into his mansion immediately, then shoot him into a sieve. But such irrational behavior is obviously unreliable. Thinking of this, I went to the living room to find Cho Carol. Then I told Tian about Lu Fengde's matter. Cho Carol briefly explained it. Cho Carol thought for a moment, and then shared her thoughts on the matter. Approaching this type of person requires great caution. It's important to be extra cautious when dealing with them. They have a high level of intelligence, but a very low moral standard. This matter cannot be delayed. In the end times, only resources matter. Whether it's a lovely female doctor or a top female celebrity. In the end, I obey every word for resources. But I also understand the principle of not revealing wealth. So besides a few people who are very close to me all along, I have never revealed the secret of another dimension to anyone. But there are no secrets that can't be known. I was targeted just as I moved into Reach Prince's sanctuary. And the other party is one of the top domestic network security experts. By hacking into my phone, most of my information has been obtained by them. Even the theft case at the Walmart warehouse. He found some clues in the case, and used it to threaten me to take away a lot of goods. Otherwise, he would make the secret public, just at a loss. I am prepared to listen to Cho Carol's opinions. After all, she is also a wealthy daughter. I have dealt with tycoons like this more often than you. I now have leverage in his hands. How do you think such a person should be dealt with? Carol Cho thought about it seriously. She did mention that she has come into contact with quite a few such individuals. She remembered their style of doing things. They are absolutely motivated by self-interest. Moreover, they are intelligent, ruthless, and have no moral bottom line. There is often no good outcome in fighting against them. After all, the dirty things they do behind the scenes are unimaginable. What should I do? I can't keep being blackmailed like this. I can't let her live, for sure. But I'm worried that he may have some tricks up his sleeve. So I can't act recklessly either. Carol Cho furrowed her brows as well. This matter is indeed a bit tricky. I remember seeing a news report about it before. an internet tycoon colluded with officials. Later, when their scheme was uncovered, the officials tried to destroy the evidence. They actually hired someone to kill the internet tycoon. But in the end, their scandal was still exposed. Hearing this, I also remembered this news. The internet tycoon had already uploaded the evidence to a cloud storage in advance. And he had set up a program for automatic distribution. Without his personal operation, the evidence would be automatically distributed to the entire internet the next day. And this guy, Lu Fengde, definitely has the ability to do this preparation. So even if they kill him now, they won't be able to stop the intelligence from leaking. At present, it seems that we cannot break the deadlock. This old fox, who has been maneuvering in the business world for years. If we play according to his strategies, we will definitely lose. Moreover, he will surely continue to gradually push the boundaries. It will be like a bottomless pit that can never be filled. Therefore, we cannot rush this matter. We can only temporarily satisfy his demands to appease him first. Then, we can carefully plan for the long term. Since that's the case, how about we relax first? After saying that, Carol Cho lowered her head. Just at that moment, Yang Mimi just returned from the botanical garden. She saw me. I originally didn't want her to know about this matter. After all, I don't completely trust her. But when I think about Yang Mimi's rich social experience. Besides, she is also the owner of an entertainment company. Maybe she can give some advice. At this thought, I gestured for her to come over and discuss countermeasures together. After a brief introduction. This matter is indeed troublesome. That cunning and slippery old guy. Surely there are countless backup plans guarding against you. Then he sighed deeply. It's truly just spreading rumors with one's mouth. Debunking gossip wears one out. Who in the entertainment industry isn't profoundly affected by this? Yang Ni's casual remark sparked a sudden realization in me. It seems like I've caught onto some important information. Yes. Spreading rumors. I thought to myself that he indeed has no solid evidence in his hands. I just need to make people think this is a rumor, right? At this moment, a scheme is slowly taking shape in my mind. A greasy old man of 50 actually tried to use seduction to get me to support him. Otherwise, he will expose me holding Walmart, worth tens of billions. The secret of the goods being exposed. How can I tolerate this blatant extortion? But the other party is a big shot in the domestic information security field. Even though I have the ability to easily take him down, it may still not be possible to prevent the leakage of intelligence. Yang Mi's criticism actually opened up my thinking. The entertainment industry does have many unscrupulous media outlets that fabricate fake news. No one bothers to verify the truth or falsehood. If people take his information as a joke, that would be easy. However, Joe Carroll is still a bit worried. After all, he is Lu Fengde. The things he says from his mouth. Even if it is a rumor, there will always be someone who believes it. At this moment, my brain is running at full speed. I thought if this intelligence were to be drowned among countless pieces of false information, then no one will be able to distinguish the truth from falsehood. Although it may not be able to deceive everyone, but it can definitely make most people think it's nonsense. This can also minimize your own troubles to the greatest extent. The thoughts are gradually becoming clearer. The expression is also changing from worry to joy. Joe Carroll and Yang Mimi look curious. They look at me. So what's your plan? I stood up and kissed each of the two women on the face. It is indeed more useful to discuss things together than to ponder alone. You will see once I succeed. Next, I arrived at the control room. Dialing Lu Fengde's number. I deliberately used a harsh tone in an attempt to provoke Lu Fengde, threatening that if you didn't have something on me, I could kill you anytime. Lu Fengde did fall for it. He said that you'd better cooperate with me obediently. If you dare to kill me, your information will be automatically sent to everyone's phones within 24 hours. At worst, the net will break if the fish dies. After extracting the time of 24 hours, I suddenly had a concept in my heart. It should be the time he said when he just contacted me. Immediately pretended to give in. Admit that you are capable. Give me some time to prepare the supplies. I will send them to you once they are ready. I smiled slightly after hanging up the phone. Then I turned on the supercomputer, thinking about how to hide the truth. The best way is to bury it in a pile of lies. With this in mind, I used all the Chinese language knowledge I have learned over the past 25 years to edit various fancy fake news, preparing to mass send to everyone's phones, revealing the largest theft case in Tianjin City has been solved. It was committed by supermarket staff stealing under their watch. Where did the supplies from the south of Hua Country warehouse go? Eyewitnesses claim that the supplies were secretly transported by the armed forces. The police remain silent on this matter. The mystery of the theft of billions of supplies may be related to aliens. Witnesses claim to have seen a flying saucer. After editing over 100 pieces of nonsense news, I will first save the information one by one. The goal is to have a wide coverage in a short period of time. Drown out the news of Lu Fengde and set the sending range. After all, this kind of icy apocalypse only poses a threat to the people of Tianjin City. After doing all this, I stretched lazily. I have tried my best to come up with all possible solutions. Whether it will succeed or not is out of our hands now. We have come to this point, and can only prepare for the worst. But regardless of the outcome, this Lu Fengde must die. Sniping with a rifle feels good in the moment, and feels good all the way through. I followed Lu Fengde's request, and packed all the supplies into a backpack. Next, put on the bulletproof vest and cold weather clothing. Carrying the bag, I found his residence. I carefully placed the backpack in front of his house. Turning around, I took out a sniper rifle from another dimension. Then I quickly moved away from his mansion. I arrived under a pine tree at a high point. The tree trunk just happened to provide cover for myself. I laid on the ground and aimed at the backpack, thinking that as long as he dared to leave the house, in an instant, he can be sniped. After getting everything ready, I sent a message to Lu Fengde. The supplies have been placed at your doorstep. It seems like the other party has figured everything out. There has been no response, and they haven't come out to get the supplies. It has been about half an hour. The lower half of the body, lying down, is almost getting numb from the cold. I decided to take out my phone and give Lu Fengde a call. I just about to dial when it suddenly hit me. I absolutely cannot contact him right now. If I were to contact him now, wouldn't it be giving him a heads up? If I let him know that I am aware the goods are still at the entrance, he is bound to suspect that I am nearby watching him. Thinking of this, I continue to stare fixedly through the scope. I think to myself that I have even taken down Reach Prince. He should be well aware of my capabilities. He dared to blackmail me at the risk of his life. He will definitely come out to take the supplies, unless he is already dead in this extreme cold of minus 80 degrees. Luckily, I am wearing high-tech cold-resistant clothing. Otherwise, maintaining this posture lying in the snow for nearly an hour, I guess my lower body would have long turned into an ice sculpture. Suddenly, a hunting rifle slowly appeared from the door. After confirming that there was no danger around, a greasy old man came into view. Lu Fengde saw the supplies and was thrilled. He was about to take them when I seized the opportunity. It was now. Without hesitation, I pulled the trigger. With a deafening gunshot, Lu Fengde's head was instantly pierced. Seeing the situation, I quickly switched the sniper rifle to an assault rifle. I quickly rushed towards the villa. Lu Fengde had already lost his breath, but I still fired 3 shots, then decisively rushed into the room to search for the computer. Sure enough, I found a laptop in the study. I was about to smash it. Suddenly, I hesitated again. This kind of high-end laptop. Inside, there may be a lot of top-secret information. Thinking about this, I put the computer into another dimension. In another dimension, time approaches a standstill. I should also be able to prevent information from being sent out. I took a deep breath after finishing all this. Next, I can only leave it to fate. Even though the local physical devices have been destroyed, but the other party may still take advantage of the cloud deployment in advance. He is one of the top players in the domestic information field. This possibility is very high. Now we can only go back and re-edit it. All fake news has been sent out. Let the intelligence be submerged in countless smoke bombs. Minimize your own troubles. Oh no, I am surrounded by beauties. The beauties not only cared for me by making stewed ox whip with lamb's kidneys, but also chased after me to feed me tonic soup, afraid of being outperformed by the other party. Of course, I naturally enjoyed this very much. After resolving Lu Fengde's issue, I returned to the control room and fought until late at night. Spread hundreds of misinformation on the internet. I stretched and walked out of the control room. Cho Carol brought the soup over. "ZhangYi, you must be hungry after working so hard for so long." I stewed a nourishing soup. Yang Mimi didn't want to be left out and said, "I also made chicken soup. Try it while it's hot." I really enjoy this feeling of being cared for. It's good to have two women at home who know how to take care of things. Thinking about this happy life, I must guard my own interests at all costs. By the way, have any of you received any strange messages on your phones? The pair mentioned they received dozens of random and messy messages today. Most of them are about the Walmart theft case. It's like covering up some truth. I picked up the chicken soup and took a big sip. These are all sent by me, and all within these 24 hours. Everyone's phones will continue to receive this kind of information. I'm going to use this massive amount of fake news to cover up the truth that is unfavorable to me. Anyway, Lu Fengde is already dead. As long as I can deceive people these few days, there should be no one else who can threaten me. Cho Carol still looks worried. Releasing information so intensively may backfire. At least you have caught everyone's attention. Suddenly stirring up this matter can indeed easily attract nationwide attention. I reluctantly took a bite of the beef meatball. I did this out of necessity. Now I can't stop the program set by Lu Fengde. The best solution now can only be this way. After all, everyone is trying to survive in the last days. There's probably not much energy left, and no leisure to distinguish the authenticity of information. Moreover, compared to my random fabrication of aliens, high-ranking military officials, and the like, as a mere warehouse manager, my level of suspicion has plummeted to the minimum. Yang Mimi's eyes lit up. Zhang's move is indeed brilliant. It's like when some scandal appears in our entertainment industry. If an even bigger celebrity gets into trouble, those lesser-known ones will be quickly forgotten. At this moment, Yang Mimi's face is full of adoration. She thinks that this young man is not useless besides being handsome and fit. As Yang Mimi suddenly looked at me with a face of admiration, I felt pleased. At this moment, Cho Carol expressed her own concerns again. However, all these intensive messages were sent from the same IP address. If you encounter someone a bit more professional, wouldn't your own position be exposed faster? After saying, "Cho Carol," I realized that the atmosphere was not right. I thought that I only liked to hear flattery. I quickly waved my hand and said, "But now there are not many live people left. Those who understand how to counter-investigate network IP addresses are even fewer. So Zhang's plan is still very perfect." I picked up the bowl of 10 full tonic soup and took a big sip. It is not the Stone Age now. It is impossible to completely hide all traces. All we can do now is to do our best. Minimize troubles to the greatest extent possible. As long as the network communication is still working, they will eventually find out about us. I stared fixedly at the meatball I had just picked up. I don't like the feeling of being threatened. I have long been prepared for this. As long as someone dares to challenge me again, I have just one word: bring it on. Witnessing my hormones surging like this. Two women are looking at me admiringly, as if they want to come over and devour me immediately. How arrogant the hackers are in the apocalypse. They actually hacked into my phone. He asked me to bring him a feast every day. Otherwise, he will raid my hidden Walmart. The secrets of the warehouse will be exposed. But he clearly underestimated my strength. How arrogant he is when extorting me. He will die a miserable death. I took him out with a headshot directly. But he is after all a top player in the field of information. Most likely he has already left a backup in the cloud. Set up a program to automatically spread. But even at the risk of information spreading, this Lu Fengde must also die. The feeling of being threatened makes me very uncomfortable. Although I also want to quietly hide in the shelter, things have come to this point. I can only be prepared for the worst. Actively prepared to resist all attacking forces. However, this shelter costs $1 billion to build. Claimed to be capable of withstanding nuclear attacks. Plus, having an endless supply of food in hand. Unless faced with top-tier armed forces attacking, there's really no need to panic at all. Upon hearing this, Cho Carol and Yang Mimi were extremely grateful. They have finally embraced the greatest reliance in the apocalypse. I smiled and glanced at ZhangYi. Don't celebrate too early. Although I am confident in the defense of the shelter. But you can't just sit idle in the days ahead. Hearing this, ZhangYi's face turned red in an instant. The shy look in her eyes seemed to be saying that there are other people around. I was completely speechless. What are you thinking about every day? ZhangYi looked a bit innocent too. After all, she has been living here for so long, and hasn't been very helpful in other ways. I asked you to help me make traps. ZhangYi looked innocent with her head covered. How could we make traps? I stood up with my hands open. Although this building has top-notch defense, it seems to lack in terms of human-caused disasters. Given that our country Hua has extremely strict weapon control, the shelter significantly lacks defensive weapons. Therefore, I plan to set up tight traps around the shelter. If anyone daring enough to come and cause trouble, they will regret it. I will make sure they have no way out. Hearing this, the two women instantly got excited. Since ZhangYi appeared, Cho Carol has also gradually become aware of the crisis. They immediately scrambled to agree one after another. As long as I can help you solve your problems, I will do my best. ZhangYi is not willing to show weakness either. Although I don't understand the trap very well, I will also do my best. After listening, I nodded and stood up. Then I took out a large pile of hardware materials from another dimension. Most of them are things like steel nails and traps. I picked up a steel nail and taught them how to make it, and reminded them to remember the arrangement of the traps. Cho Carol and ZhangYi also realized that the days ahead might be really dangerous, so they were extremely cautious and didn't dare to be careless at all. The sense of vigilance in their hearts made them concentrate on their studies. Nails scattered directly on the snowy ground won't be able to injure anyone. I took out a wooden board and nailed the nails onto the board. This way it can pierce through the sole of the foot. However, the steel nails are still too smooth. Once it pierces in, it's easy to pull out. As I was saying this, I took out a box of screws. If paired with the threads on these screws, it will immediately increase the amount of damage. The feeling of pulling out a nail covered in snow and flesh must be very stimulating. Oh no. I possess the secret of Walmart's 10 billion goods. About to be exposed. Even though I have scattered enough smoke bombs myself. But I am also well aware that I can't hide it from everyone. I must be fully prepared. So I am preparing to set up tight traps around the shelter. I took out a batch of nails and wooden boards from another dimension. Teach Cho Carol and ZhangYi to make traps, I said earnestly. This kind of nail trap at least needs to make tens of thousands for me. Must cover every corner around the villa with no dead ends. After speaking, I picked up a trap. This is a good tool. If you get caught by this thing in this kind of weather, you're basically done for. I have been explaining placement techniques to both of them. How to maximize the lethality of the trap. After speaking, the two women followed my command. They started mass-producing nail board traps. I kept busy myself as well. Standing in front of the window, I have a clear view of the surrounding terrain in my mind. There are two intersections leading to my own villa that are unavoidable paths. At this moment, I thought of the two landmines I had previously found in the arsenal. I can conveniently place them right in the middle of those two intersections. This level of explosive mine can instantly destroy even tanks and armored vehicles. If someone falls victim to it, there might not even be any remains left. It seems that I need to be careful and avoid it when going out in the future. However, these nail traps can only be used once. They are easily dismantled by the other party. We need to find a way to ensure that intruders have no way back. Quickly, a large number of nail boards have been prepared. ZhangYi's hands are blistered from rubbing, but she hasn't uttered a word of complaint. She knows full well that her role is far from over. As a doctor, Cho Carol must show her own importance. I see that too. Later, we went outside. I personally guided them on how to set up traps. The location and depth of burying the trap are both very particular. After all, it is still snowing now. It is not suitable if it is buried too deep or too shallow. Having said that, I arrived at the intersection of the inevitable path. I took out a military shovel and dug 2 half-meter deep pits. Carefully put the landmines in, then filled them with snow. I thought that with a bit more snow, the traces would be almost invisible. Next is to prevent the opponent from clearing the traps. I already have a great plan in mind for this. That is to connect the pins of the hand grenades with steel wires, then bury them in the snow. In this way, if someone kicks it, the steel wires will trigger a chain explosion. This could have a considerable deterrent effect if the opponent is not a well-trained regular soldier. Approaching the shelter is by no means an easy task. Even if someone really breaks through the outer traps, there is still a defense passage of more than 10 meters inside the shelter. These are my own confidence. And I still have an ace up my sleeve. That is your another dimension. After returning to the room, ZhangYi unexpectedly felt a sense of eagerness. Excitedly asked, "ZhangYi, when can they take effect?" I was speechless. I wish these traps were all just decorations. You're lucky. But it shouldn't be happening too soon. After all, the end of the world has been going on for so long. Being able to hold on to one's own little piece of land and live well is already pretty good. It's not to the point of utter necessity. No one will attack others. Everyone who has survived up to now has a brain. Under the frozen end of the world, I managed to seize the super shelter of the richest man. But even the billion-dollar shelter has fatal flaws. That is overly reliant on automated programs. Once it is hacked into by a network expert, it will be disastrous. I have only just realized this. So even though traps are set outside the house, I am still worried. Turn around and take out the welding machine to reinforce each door with bolts. ZhangYi was stunned for a moment. You just said that our shelter was impeccable. Isn't it redundant to install this thing? You don't understand. Although these gates are almost impenetrable, after all, their switches are controlled by computers. There is a risk of being controlled by hackers. My latch is the most basic physical means. This most primitive method is the most reliable method. This steel bolt, which is a dozen centimeters thick, is almost impossible for ordinary people to break open. 2.5 hours later, success was achieved. Looking at my masterpiece, I am full of pride on my face. I really am a versatile genius. Looking at my caution, ZhangYi is somewhat speechless. While on the side, Jo Carol is already accustomed. In her eyes, there is only admiration, still admiration. But ZhangYi gradually realized after some careful consideration. Suddenly, I realized that my approach did make a lot of sense. Gradually, it seems like my gaze has changed. Although this man seems cautious and fearful, isn't this the survival rule of the apocalypse? At this moment, I also fell into contemplation. All the protections in the shelter have been taken to the extreme. If there were a skilled hacker here, that would be perfect. Upon hearing these words, ZhangYi's face also showed deep sadness. She murmured softly, "I wonder how Sinsen is doing now." She is still quite savvy with the internet. Hearing this, Jo Carol seemed to have remembered something. Isn't Sinsen studying in our Tianhai city? Don't you two keep in touch? It turns out that Sinsen is ZhangYi's cousin. She attends the prestigious TQ Academy in Tianhai City. Although she suffers from polio, which has led to paralysis in both legs, she has a very high IQ. Especially in the field of computer science, she has a formidable talent. At the age of just 16, she has won numerous international awards in the computer field. Furthermore, she is secretly a world-class hacker. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel some astonishment. The difference between people is even greater than the difference between people and dogs. Can she be found now? I'm eager to find a network expert to maintain my network security. Upon hearing this, ZhangYi's expression suddenly showed a hint of self-blame. We haven't been in contact for a long time. I tried to contact her after the snow disaster, but I have never received a reply. With her abilities, as long as she is alive, she will definitely be able to contact me, unless something unexpected has happened to her. At this point, ZhangYi swallowed hard. I jokingly said, "Maybe she's just too lazy to bother with you." After all, with the Yang family's extensive connections, in her eyes, you, this actor, are simply useless. Who would turn to a useless person for help in times of danger? ZhangYi was so angry that she stomped her feet. She couldn't help but make a fist as if to punch my chest. In response, I just had a wicked smile on my face. The originally heavy atmosphere was somewhat relieved because of this. But I still had some regrets in my heart. I thought to myself that it would be great if the genius Sinsen were still alive. If I could have her join my team. That would certainly be a good choice. After all, her paralyzed legs pose no threat to me. Most importantly, both of her cousins are so beautiful. Her own appearance should be about the same. But since I can't have what I want, there's nothing to regret. Anyway, the firewall at the shelter is strong enough. It's not easy to break through without being a top expert. All I can do now is to watch and wait. Here it comes, the mysterious West Mountain base has finally surfaced. I have intelligence on a massive amount of resources. I can't escape their scrutiny. I have also been targeted by this powerful underground force because of this. After dealing with Lu Fengde, he did indeed preemptively set the program as expected. Sent a text message to everyone in Tianhai City. But this message was successfully drowned out by my own smoke bomb. No splashes at all. And the text message sent by Lu Fengde only stated my identity and address, as well as the possibility of having a large amount of information in hand. The goods at the Walmart warehouse were stolen, and the quantity was huge. Huge quantity does not mean all. Such ambiguous expressions lack clear quantitative standards. After all, how could he know about things like another dimension? And he sent hundreds of fabricated messages himself. Most people find it extremely difficult to distinguish which message is real. If someone truly comes knocking on the door, they must not be just some ordinary group. Perhaps they have top-level computer experts. I continue to practice shooting arrows. After nearly half a month of relentless training, it seems that I am expanding another dimension again. I have gained some new abilities. These abilities can be attached to weapons and flying props. This increases their power and accuracy. After being blessed by the supernatural ability, I can hit a target 400 meters away with just one arrow. This is when I had an idea. If this kind of ability is applied to melee weapons, even applied to one's own body, what would happen? The result is indeed surprising. After enveloping the whole body with supernatural ability, the air resistance that my body experiences is greatly reduced. Both speed and accuracy have doubled. A certain celebrity also once said, "Speed is power," even though physical strength has not improved much. But as long as the speed doubles, the destructive power doubles as well. And with increased speed, the ability to evade is also stronger. Escaping becomes much faster. I am increasingly fond of my own abilities because of this. Although it may seem functionally simple, it has infinite potential for development. I can even feel that I am just beginning. I have only scratched the surface of the iceberg. I can't even imagine how powerful I will be when fully developed. Suddenly my stomach growled. I quickly took out 2 bars of chocolate and stuffed them into my mouth. It seems that this supernatural ability consumes quite a lot. After all, power comes from cells. I can't photosynthesize either. If you want strength, you must replenish it with food. So, the power of a supernatural person also depends on the amount of food in hand. No matter how strong the opponent's supernatural ability is, you can't use it without eating enough. Thinking of the endless resources in another dimension. In this case, won't you be invincible? At least, you can use infinite resources to wear them down. Meanwhile, in an underground shelter, Qin Shernyan, the leader of the West Mountain organization, is currently worrying about the energy problem at the base. At this time, the secretary pushed open the door. The secretary, Guro, handed over a stack of documents and slowly said, "The results of the information we received earlier have been found." All the information comes from Yunke Estate in Lujiang District. The majority of it is from Villa 101 in Yunke Estate. However, there is one message that stands out. It comes from the mobile phone of Lu Fengde, the chairman of Zhiyun Technology. His home address is Villa 302 in Yunke Estate. Qin Shernyan took the report and pondered for a moment. "Please give me a detailed report on what was mentioned about ZhangYi in the report. I'm curious now. What kind of waves can a small warehouse manager make? Everyone in the village is busy fishing, but this homebody just holds his girlfriend all day and does nothing. Just because he awakened powerful ice snow abilities. The villagers all regard him as a deity. But it's because of our last battle. His abilities have been questioned by the villagers. Su Chubster himself has also been deeply affected. I thought I was the chosen one in the script, possessing top-notch supernatural ability. Then I turned on cheat mode and reached the peak of life. But I never expected myself to be so vulnerable. The sensitive Su Chubster gradually became decadent because of this. Every day, apart from rewarding oneself 5 or 6 times, one is just holding the phone and complaining endlessly. That day, he was bored and flipping through his phone. The sudden influx of fake messages he received a few days ago made him feel somewhat unusual. He vaguely felt that this matter might be related to the mysterious person who scared him away that day. Sue Chubster, as a homebody. He still has some technical skills in computer applications. Quickly, he found clues from the text message. The information about the independent IP caught his attention. ZhangYi, warehouse manager. Theft case in the south of Hua Country warehouse. This was the biggest news in the days before the apocalypse. Sue Chubster always thought this was a self-directed farce. But now it seems that this is not groundless. Did they really manage to empty the Walmart warehouse with just one person's strength? Sue Chubster suddenly became excited. The imagination of otakus in the 2D dimension is always vast. And when you add in the fact that he is also a supernatural ability user, everything becomes easier to understand. The man named ZhangYi probably awakened some kind of supernatural ability related to the spatial domain, like an infinitely capacity vacuum cleaner. He can collect a large number of objects. The ice and snow he controlled suddenly disappeared in front of him that day. But later, the ice and snow were released again. This is definitely not just a rebound attack. It's as if my attack was received in another space, and then released in the opposite direction. It was at this moment that Sue Chubster suddenly realized. He must be a dimensional abilities user. The stolen goods from the Walmart warehouse. Definitely inside is another dimension. No wonder he can have a luxurious snow vehicle rare in the south. Thinking of this, Sue Chubster is greatly affected. He actually possesses the Space Series supernatural ability. Truly admirable. Compared to him, my supernatural ability is clearly several levels lower. Could he be the real protagonist? Am I just a weak antagonist? Will I become his experience points? Meanwhile, in the leader's office of West Mountain Base, Secretary Guro reports all information about ZhangYi to Qin Shernyan without missing a word. When he learned that he was just a small warehouse manager, Qin Shernyan's expression immediately became dull and tasteless. Just a little thief. It is highly likely that he took advantage of his position to steal. He has hoarded a lot of stolen goods until now. Even if this matter is somewhat related to him, the amount of goods in his hands won't be much. This guy definitely isn't the mastermind behind the warehouse theft case. Guro immediately started to flatter and praise. The leader's words are indeed correct. How could these small fries have such ability? Qin Shernyan smiled faintly, revealing a look that sees through everything. This is definitely a conspiracy of other forces. They must have gotten the intelligence beforehand. That's why they withdrew the resources first and staged those self-directed dramas. Guro continues to flatter and fawn. The leader's judgment is truly astute. How could these small tricks of theirs work? How did it escape the leader's watchful eyes? Should ZhangYi still send someone to investigate? Qin Shernyan pondered for a moment. We seem to have not searched the Lujiang area yet. Send a few people to take a look. Maybe there really are clues about that batch of supplies. Oh no. I was just about to have a simple candlelit dinner. Suddenly a scream came from not far away. I immediately looked out the window. Oh no. It seems like the trap has been triggered. It happened just now. Sue Chubster's mood has been greatly affected. After all, compared to this rare supernatural ability, his ice snow abilities are obviously too weak. And his own supernatural ability is completely restrained by him. It seems that he really is just a small henchman. It's time to learn from ZhangYi's experience package. Sue Chubster also realizes the gap in strength between himself and ZhangYi. At this moment, he had an idea. Since I can't defeat him, then I'll join him. This way, I can still be a second-tier man. With this in mind, Sue Chubster suddenly bounced off the bed. I need to warn all the villagers in the village first. Don't provoke him at all costs. After all, there are too many idiots in the village who are not afraid of death. Sue Chubster ran all the way to the village head Su Dongsheng's house. Gasping for breath, he urgently shouted, "Grandpa San is in trouble. I have a very important matter to report to you." In the past, the village head didn't bother with useless people like Sue Chubster. But now, he has awakened his ice snow abilities. He has become the strongest warrior in the village. The village head also has to give him some face. Su Chubster immediately shared all the information he had learned with the village head. We are no match for ZhangYi. Yunke estate is too close to us. I suggest that the villagers stay away from that place. It's best not to go fishing there either. But the village chief doesn't seem to care about these things. He seems to be attracted by a piece of news there. He looked at Su Chubster with hopeful eyes. Are you referring to the high-profile theft at the Walmart warehouse before the apocalypse? That's the one. And is that missing billions worth of supplies in his possession? Su Chubster nodded repeatedly. The possibility is very high. He may have awakened a supernatural ability related to spatial manipulation. Then he stealthily took all the supplies into his own another dimension without anyone noticing. When Su Dongsheng heard this, his eyes lit up. Lowering his head, he said to himself, if only we could snatch those supplies! Then our Su village will never be in need again. Worried about food now. Su Chubster was taken aback. We must never think of him. Su Dongsheng looked very disdainful. You are too cowardly. Our village has several thousand people. Are you still afraid of just a little kid? Su Chubster couldn't retort for a moment. The village chief continued thoughtfully. You coward who values your life so much. When I was young, I used to fight with people from neighboring villages for water and land. Every time we fought until there was bloodshed. Now it's a matter of life and death in the apocalypse. For our Su family village, even if it costs a few lives, so be it. Su Chubster regrets deeply. He didn't expect that his good intentions would backfire in the end. And at this moment in Yunke Estate, I am enjoying newly opened red wine with 2 sisters. If not considering the danger outside, the life in this villa is like a paradise on earth. Yang Mimi, who originally planned to leave after the disaster ended, gradually became immersed in this beauty and couldn't extricate herself. At this moment, a scream from outside shattered the tranquility. I stood up abruptly. Could it be that someone is attacking us? It's over, it's over. The villagers from Su family village are coming to attack. After they found out that I had secretly hidden billions worth of supplies. Village chief Su Dongsheng's eyes lit up instantly. Without saying a word, he immediately called the villagers together. The most elite few hundred fighting force. Prepare to take me down in one fell swoop. And at this moment, I am currently with 2 others. The beautiful lady is leisurely having dinner. Sudden screams are heard. I immediately felt that something was wrong. I got up and walked towards the 2nd floor balcony. I took out the infrared telescope and looked around the villa. I saw a large group of dark shadows coming towards the villa. I have already guessed the identities of these people. They must be the villagers surnamed Su from across the bank. After all, it has only been 2.5 days since the incident. Only reckless men like them would rush over without investigation. I took out a sniper rifle from another dimension. Since you all like to seek death, I will make your wish come true. They came with so many people at once. He definitely doesn't have good intentions. Anyone who disturbs my peaceful life must die. But these ordinary people pose no threat. The only one to watch out for is that supernatural person in their village. If he shows up as well, take this opportunity to get rid of him too. Immediately I searched for that supernatural person in the crowd. As for the other riffraff, let them test the power of the trap. At this time, the vanguard team from Su family village has already reached the edge of the trap. They are looking at the brightly lit villa not far away. It feels like a dream. After the frozen apocalypse, they survived until now by relying on food reserves and fishing skills. How could they have thought of this? In the wealthy area just across the river, there are people living such luxurious lives. A villager unconsciously walked forward. Suddenly, an excruciating pain shot up from the sole of the foot. The crowd quickly looked over and found that he was stepping on a plank with his foot. The plank was densely covered with nails. The nails had already pierced through the sole of the foot. Under such extreme cold temperatures, this injury could also be fatal. The team leader quickly ordered people to carry him away and notified everyone to be cautious of traps. The village chief stayed behind to direct operations. Upon hearing this news, orders were issued immediately. It seems the other party had already made preparations in advance. But this won't stump me, Su Dongsheng. Spread the word. Use branches and sticks to explore the path. Advance slowly. I see all of this. Clever folks. The good show is still ahead. They did manage to clear out quite a few nail trap planks. Soon they slowly surrounded us, watching the opponent's trap being solved with a move by the village chief. The villagers were also encouraged, gradually relaxed their vigilance. At that moment, the person felt a resistance at their feet. It seemed like they stumbled over something like a rope. The next second, a burst of flame shot up into the sky. A huge explosion resounded through the heavens. Instantly, more than a dozen people were blasted away. The villagers were scared and kept retreating. Some villagers had not taken a few steps before suddenly finding that a sharp pain was coming from their chests and faces. They only discovered it when they opened their clothes. They managed to escape the explosion, but they couldn't escape the flying shrapnel. The villagers who were hit were suddenly panicked. They fell to the ground, rolling madly and screaming in anguish. The team became disorganized as a result. Suddenly, there was another loud bang. Someone accidentally triggered a landmine trap. The villagers were instantly terrified. Like madmen, they scrambled back. Yet, there were still many nailed board traps left in the snow. And in the dark night, everyone was in chaos. They had long lost their direction. The scene was full of desolation and extreme brutality. And I was quietly watching all of this, revealing a wicked smile. A packet of instant noodles can trigger the end of lives. But I am at home alone, raising two top-tier beautiful women. When the villagers see the scene at my house, everyone is moved. Some people see a table full of delicious food. Some people see luxurious and comfortable furnishings. Some people instead focused on the two beautiful women. They thought, if they could live in a house like this, who would care about the apocalypse? This is clearly paradise. After launching the first attack, the villagers suffered heavy casualties. There were continuous nail traps and explosions, making the scene extremely tragic. Some villagers began to feel timid. They used to be invincible when fighting with several nearby villages in the past. There has never been such a humiliating scene. At this point, the villagers realized the problem. They must call Turali to come. After all, Turali can manipulate ice and snow. Fighting in this icy and snowy environment is like using a cheat code in human form. The villagers surrounded the village chief. Hurry and ask Turali to take action. We can't afford any more casualties. Su Dongsheng had a somewhat ugly expression. He remembered that Turali had warned him in the afternoon not to mess with ZhangYi. I even scolded him for being timid and weak. But now, the first wave of attacks has left the villagers at a loss. At this moment, I am quietly watching everything with a sniper rifle in my arms. I wonder why this ice and snow supernatural person hasn't made a move yet. I really don't know which one is the supernatural person. These villagers are less than 200 meters away from me. It's as easy as pie to kill them. Even if that supernatural person hides and attacks from behind, as long as they are within 2,000 meters, I can still snipe them. At this point, Su Dongsheng is in a dilemma. Asking Su Chubster for help is absolutely impossible. He has already boasted in front of him. He doesn't need him to defeat ZhangYi, let alone have his grandfather beg his grandson. I really can't do it. Su Dongsheng immediately made up his mind and rebuked loudly. Don't we achieve nothing without Turali? Who of us didn't do that when we were young? I have set traps on the mountains. These childish traps are just to trick wild boars. His house is just ahead. If the monk can run away, the temple cannot. Su Dongsheng, for the sake of his own face, chose to confront it head-on. Immediately handed the binoculars in his hand to the villager. You should carefully look inside that villa yourselves. See what's inside? The villagers could hardly believe their eyes when they saw the scene inside the villa. The brightly lit house was full of activity. Various steaming delicacies were laid out on the dining table. The villa was furnished with all kinds of high-end luxury furniture. Two super beautiful women were sitting at the dining table, enjoying their dinner. The villagers were already starting to be infatuated, but still felt a sense of trepidation. After all, the snow was full of traps. It would be best to call Turali for help. With Turali's abilities, he only needs to make a little effort to uncover the entire snowfield. By then, all the traps will be completely exposed. Upon hearing this, the village chief was immediately furious. You useless people! It seems that other than Turali, everyone else in our village are cowards. If you are afraid, you can go back home now. Don't embarrass yourselves here. This provocation strategy indeed worked. The villagers were instantly filled with enthusiasm. They all expressed that they were not cowards. He picked up his tools and turned his head to continue clearing the traps. Seeing this scene, Su Dongsheng nodded in satisfaction. That's the way to do it. There's nothing to be afraid of with these childish traps. As long as you're careful, this thing is nothing at all. The entire village came to attack my shelter, but I am very happy. I didn't even pay attention to these brainless thugs. My goal is to find that ice and snow supernatural person I encountered last time. But I waited for half a day. The supernatural person still did not make a move. The densely packed crowd is already surrounding them. I couldn't help but feel a bit strange in my heart. Could it be that the supernatural person didn't come this time? After villager chief Su Dongsheng's instigation, the villagers continued to clean the traps with gritted teeth. After the painful lesson of the first round, they quickly became smarter. They could be seen digging snow blocks from afar and tossing them forward. Indeed triggered several traps. This boosted the villagers' confidence. Just another 100 meters. As long as they make it to the building below his. The food and beautiful women inside are all ours. Su Dongsheng also revealed a proud smile. I said these childish traps are nothing at all. The shotgun team better keep up with me. The other party must have discovered us. Turali said he has a gun in his hand. As long as he dares to shoot, we will immediately fire back. The village chief's cousin is a veteran. He immediately volunteered. As long as that guy dares to show up, I will definitely smash his head. I watched all this through the scope. I thought these people weren't too dumb. I really hadn't thought of this method of clearing traps. But the best is yet to come. Traditional methods can only clear traditional traps. The high-tech methods coming up should be quite something for you all. Yang Mimi, who had just finished eating, was instantly flustered when she saw this formation. Why are there so many people? If they break in, we'll be done for. Cho Carol on the side, however, had a calm expression. This time, I don't know how many more people are going to die. After speaking, she didn't forget to mock the frightened face of Yang Mimi. Look at you, so spineless. With your timid appearance like a mouse, how are you going to hang out with my brother Zhang in the future? The mountains of corpses and seas of blood left by ZhangYi in the Yulu residential area. To Cho Carol, what is happening now is indeed just a small scene. I see that they have entered my controllable range. I immediately activate the noise reduction function for the entire villa. The outside clamor seems to vanish in an instant. Then I decisively press the landmine activation button. A loud explosion reverberates in the middle of the road. In the instant when the flame soared into the sky, the whole villa area was as bright as day. Although unable to hear the cries from outside, but can clearly see the miserable scene. I saw blood and flesh flying outside, with limbs scattered all over the place. Yang Mimi's hairs stood on end instantly. She, who is used to being pampered, has never seen such a scene. With a wow sound, she leaned on the table and started vomiting wildly. Even Cho Carol, who has seen big scenes before. Even Cho Carol couldn't help but turn away and couldn't bear to look directly at it. Seeing this scene, I felt no ripple in my heart. After all, these are all caused by yourselves. There are a few people commanding the overall situation in the rear. The elder ones all looked blank-faced, their brains shutting down into emptiness. They couldn't accept the reality in front of them. How could this happen? A mentally disturbed young person, who was bombed, ran over. He hugged the village chief's thigh, trembling, and spoke slowly and haltingly. Third Grandpa. Everyone is dead. Their bodies blown to pieces. We need to run. Run! Thousands of people surrounded my house. But I'm not worried at all. Because I have set up traps all around the shelter. But the traps were quickly dismantled by their method of using stones to find the way. Seeing this, I decisively detonated the carefully laid landmines. The sudden explosion made the scene extremely gruesome. Even the lead village chief was stunned by the scene. His legs went weak, and he collapsed on the ground. Is he the devil? We just wanted to rob his belongings and his wife. How could he have killed hundreds of people from our Su family? So many people have died. As the patriarch and founder, he knows he can't avoid responsibility. Under the huge blow, his spirit collapsed instantly. He knelt in the snow, holding his head and talking incoherently. I watched this scene from the shelter. In my heart, I was already sure that the icy and snowy supernatural person had not come. In that case, there is no need to keep these rough men. With this in mind, I took out a compound bow and headed towards the shelter after putting on cold-proof clothing. The intelligence system issued an instruction. Open the front window. As soon as the words fell, the huge bulletproof glass window in front slowly rose. Then 3 arrows were taken out and placed on the string. After more than 10 days of training, blessed by another dimension, I can now shoot 3 arrows in a row. I stand in the darkness. Began the merciless hunting, with the sound of arrows breaking through the air. 3 village names were pierced through the skull in an instant. The modern compound bow, already extremely powerful. With the blessing of supernatural ability, its power is multiplied. The arrows quietly harvest life after life without a sound. The panicked crowd did not even realize that they were being hunted, and then began to shout at the villagers. There are hunters. The villagers with shotguns hurriedly aimed their guns. But in the dark night, they couldn't determine the direction at all. And I can aim clearly through the infrared tactical scope. If I see someone raising a gun, I will mercilessly prioritize hunting and killing. The villagers cannot understand. The shelter is still nearly 200 meters away. The wind and snow are so heavy again. What kind of bow and arrow can shoot so far and still have such great power? Watching the villagers falling one by one, Su Dongsheng felt extremely regretful. He recalled the words of Turali, who had advised him in the beginning. He finally realized how arrogant and conceited he had been. He raised his hand and harshly slapped his own mouth. I deserve to die. I have brought shame to the ancestors of the Su family. I am the center of the Su family. I watched this scene through the scope. Since it has come to this, I will fulfill you and send you on your way. He drew the crossbow and prepared to take him away. Suddenly, a strong wind and snowstorm formed in the sky. In the blink of an eye, a tornado appeared. It stood between the villagers and the shelter. I gathered the bow and arrows in my hands. Why did you only come now? The ice and snow supernatural person couldn't resist taking action after all. I immediately switched the bow and crossbow for a sniper rifle. After all, this level of blizzard has already diminished the power of arrows. As a supernatural person, Su Chubster understands the difference between the villagers and ZhangYi better than anyone else. He heard a huge explosion. Timid Su Turali still summoned up the courage and hurried over. He was seen struggling to control himself as much as possible. The ice and snow blocked the view of the shelter, while shouting loudly at the villagers. Hurry up! I can't hold on for much longer. They're coming! Su Chubster finally arrived. He couldn't bear to see the whole village perish there. Trying my utmost to control the ice and snow, attempting to block my sight. The villagers then woke up as if from a dream. They realized that their own attack had completely failed. Staying here will lead to everyone's death. Turali is overcoming the inner fear, striving to maintain the storm's edge to buy time for the villagers to evacuate. And I, watching all of this from the shelter, have also given up shooting. Now my line of sight is completely blocked. Randomly shooting will only waste precious bullets. After all, another dimension only has a few hundred boxes left in stock. Maintaining such a large-scale snowstorm must have a huge physical toll. There is still about 1 kilometer of road to escape back to the other side of the river. He probably can't hold on for much longer. Thinking of this, I took out all kinds of protective gear from another dimension. I'm ready to go all out. Then fully armed, he went downstairs to bid farewell to his 2 wives. You two go take a shower first, and wait for me to come back. Watching ZhangYi acting promptly, Yang Mimi is full of inner security, thinking in the heart that I finally found the strongest reliance. At this moment, Su Chubster is still trying to maintain the snowstorm. Su Chubster secretly felt relieved after realizing that the sound of gunfire did not ring out again. Did they stop chasing? Su Chubster thought to himself that this trick was indeed effective. But in the next second, a loud roar sounded. Everyone heard that it was the sound of an engine. Suddenly, a snowmobile rushed out from the snow. I activated the autopilot and unleashed a spray of indiscriminate gunfire with the assault rifle. The villagers screamed in terror. Turali. He is chasing after us. Quickly use the snowstorm to stop him. I looked back in the direction of the sound. attempting to find out the supernatural ability users from the crowd. Soon, the attention was drawn to a fat figure. Because everyone else was in a panic and fleeing. Only he occasionally turned back and raised his hand towards me. "It's you." A loud bang. A bullet grazed past Su Chubster's ear. Su Chubster narrowly escaped death. He broke out in a cold sweat immediately. At this moment, a makeshift snowmobile rushed over. "Turali, hurry up." Watching them fleeing in panic, I was tempted to give up the chase. After all, once we crossed the river, it would be the territory of their village. In case they have set traps as well, it will be troublesome. I sat in the car, pondering for 2.5 seconds. I thought this was a perfect opportunity to take down the opponent's supernatural person. I had no reason to let him go. Thinking of this, I stepped on the accelerator again and chased after him fiercely. Just kill this supernatural person. All other villagers are just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. But Su Chubster still maintains a snowstorm between them. Especially around himself, the defense is tight. But his attacks only cause visual impairment to me. After all, the range of the snowstorm is limited. It's impossible to take care of everyone at the same time. In that case, I simply turned my gun and started shooting the panicked villagers, watching the villagers fall one by one. Su Chubster felt extremely painful in his heart. But he was powerless. He could only save himself, and could not save everyone. I watched this scene with an evil smile on my face. I want to see. Do you think you are important, or do you think your villagers are important? Oh no, ZhangYi actually lost. I didn't expect the opponent's supernatural person's potential to be so powerful. He actually managed to crack open an ice surface several meters thick. I almost fell into the river because of him. Just a moment ago, I was thinking of taking the opportunity to deal with the other supernatural person at one go. The road is crazy, and the pursuit is fierce. How can the villagers' dogs pull a snow sled? They can't outrun my luxury snowmobile, especially since they are all still dragging the bodies of their loved ones. They also plan to bring them back for burial. They can't run fast at all. It was only then that Su Chubster realized this issue. Immediately tell the villagers to discard all the bodies. The villagers looked very reluctant. After all, they placed particular importance on giving a proper burial. But now that things have come to this point, they have no other choice. These corpses have caused a slight impact on my pursuit, but it's not a big issue. The obstacle avoidance capability of the autonomous driving system is still very strong. Just that it has had some slight effect on my aim. But I still rarely miss a shot. And with a military sniper rifle powered by supernatural ability. Extremely terrifying power. One shot can pierce through the heads of 2 or 3 people. Watching the villagers fall one by one, Su Chubster feels extremely painful in his heart. Everyone is looking at Su Turali with pleading and hopeful eyes. Now they can only place their hopes on him. Turali quickly think of a solution. Just when it seemed almost hopeless, Su Chubster had a sudden inspiration. Just use this move. Su Chubster opens his right hand. A blue light shone from his eyes and the palms of his hands. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the ice surface. It was right in front of me, blocking my pursuit. Under the continuous exertion of Su Chubster, the crack began to widen. The snowmobile was inevitably falling into the crevice. I had to choose to temporarily stop the pursuit. I leaned out of the car window. I saw the crack in the ice extending for tens of meters, blocking his way forward firmly. I stood on the roof of the car, looking at everything with a moment of fear. That supernatural person was actually able to crack open such thick ice. Fortunately, it seems that the opponent's ability is not yet powerful enough. They couldn't completely crack open the ice. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been swallowed up by the ice with the car. I would have plunged into the river. I stood on the roof of the car and fired a few random shots. I accidentally killed a few villagers. I kept shooting until the figures of the opponents disappeared from my sight in the scope. I sighed deeply. It seems that I can't fight him on the ice in the future. A supernatural person who can control ice and snow. The abilities in this icy post-apocalypse are truly unimaginable. I had to use another dimension to correct the snowmobile. I drove back to the shelter. The traps have been mostly destroyed. Looks like I'll have to install them again. But it's not a big deal. After all, there were already enough invaders killed. When they returned home, Yang Mimi still looked weak. The bloody scene just now made her vomit even the overnight meal. Joe Carroll asked with concern. Was that supernatural person dealt with? I replied nonchalantly while sitting on the sofa. That guy is too creepy. I almost didn't see his figure all night. His supernatural ability used for escaping is disgusting. It's not easy to kill him. However, the main reason is still that I am too cautious. I let him slip away when he had the chance. Isn't it too cruel for us to do this to ZhangYi? After all, killing is against the law. Aren't you afraid of being held accountable after the end of the world? A man risked his life to save hundreds of villagers, only to be criticized by the villagers for not acting sooner. They even called him a coward. Why didn't he charge to the forefront? After rushing back to his own village in a panic. Everyone was terrified by this scene. They had thought that the heroes would return triumphantly with loads of spoils. But reality turned out to be unbearable. And almost half of the people were missing. Grief could be seen everywhere. Some were looking for their husbands, some were looking for their sons. The survivors were overwhelmed with grief. Sue Chubster stood in a snowstorm at a loss. He had warned them in advance. At that moment, his cousin grabbed Sue Chubster's arm and anxiously shouted, Quick, go check on Grandpa San. He seems unable to hold on. He wants to see you. Upon hearing that Grandpa San, Su Dongsheng, is in critical condition, Sue Chubster's heart also sank. He immediately ran madly towards Grandpa San's house. At this time, the entrance of Su Dongsheng's house was already crowded with people. All the villagers looked at Su Turali with complicated expressions in their eyes. All the survivors knew that it was Turali who saved them. But others did not see it that way. There was no gratitude on their faces. Instead, they were filled with resentment and even disgust. One woman was seen wiping away tears, gritting her teeth as she said, It's just your Su family's good luck, having such extraordinary abilities. But why didn't you go in the first place? It's because of you that my son is dead. Some even directly cursed out, You cowardly turtle. Give me back my husband's life. Sue Chubster replied helplessly in a low voice. I didn't tell them to go. It was because they didn't listen to me and insisted on going. When this was said, the villagers became even more anxious. They pointed their fingers at him and accused him. You coward, you are afraid of death. If you had rushed up at the beginning and used your special ability casually, everyone wouldn't have been bombed to death. Su Turali was full of anger, but he was used to being weak in the village. He didn't have the courage to act recklessly in front of the elders in the family. At this time, a sophisticated elder walked out from the house. Let's say a few words less. It's not Turali's fault. Let's go in quickly. The third brother is calling you. At this moment, Su Dongsheng is lying on the bed in critical condition. He sees Su Turali approaching. He says with a guilty face, It's all my fault. If I had listened to your advice, so many people from the Su family wouldn't have died. I was really confused. Now I understand. Our village is able to stand firm after the snow disaster entirely because of your ability. Su Dongsheng now feels remorseful. It's a pity that it's too late. He held Su Turali's hand and said, I have already explained to those people in the family. This operation is completely my responsibility. If they want to blame someone, let them blame this old man. I know that there are some idle gossip about you in the village now. I hope you don't pay attention to them. The Su family cannot afford to have internal conflict anymore. We must not let the Su family's lineage end. Speaking of this, Su Dongsheng is already in tears. So before I leave, I only ask you for one thing. You must protect the Su family well. Su Turali nodded repeatedly with tears streaming down. After I leave, the Su family will be entrusted to you. That's it. I need to rest for a while. You go out. After saying that, he tilted his head and let go, leaving this world. Su Turali quickly called the people outside the house. The members of the Su family saw Su Dongsheng, who had already closed his eyes. Immediately burst into tears. Su Chubster looked around and realized no one was paying attention to him. Then slinked away from the room. At that moment, I had just returned home and started to feel a little hungry. Immediately called Cho Carroll to cook some food. And specifically ordered brain flambe, duck gizzards, and pig intestines. Upon hearing these dish names, he thought of the gory scene earlier. Yang Mimi kept vomiting uncontrollably again. I teased and approached. Are you too weak? Shall I give you something highly nutritious tonight? By the way, it's a good idea to nourish your body. Yang Mimi's face blushed as if not refusing. The girl made an ordinary attack unintentionally. The otaku's heart was immediately filled with romantic feelings, and he immediately used up all his skills. They even have thought of the names for their future children. Just after receiving the dying request from the third grandfather, Su Chubster walked back with a strange feeling. He knew that if that person named ZhangYi really came to kill, except for running away, there is no other choice. I thought I was the chosen one. I didn't expect that I was just a cannon fodder. Why is it so difficult to quietly be an ordinary person? Just as he was dejectedly walking home with his head down, he saw a young woman waiting at his doorstep. Su Chubster spotted her. The girl quickly walked over. "Are you Turali's brother?" Su Chubster blushed. As a fan of anime, he naturally faces difficulties in communicating with real-life women. He then awkwardly mumbled, "That's me. Who are you?" The girl's eyes were filled with gratitude as she said, "My name is Su Lily. I came to thank you for saving my dad. He told me, today is the day you risked your life to save him." Su Chubster nervously scratched the back of his head. "It's nothing. It's what I should do." However, Su Turali also just realized, "I'm not a criminal. I'm a hero in the village." Su Lily said shyly with her head down. "Dad still has injuries and can't come over. He made sure I came here to thank you in person," she said. "I don't have any gifts to bring with me. I had to come empty-handed," Turali said shyly, waving her hands. "Please don't be so polite. We are all part of the Su family. I will definitely help if I can." After chatting for a few moments, Su Lily turned and disappeared into the wind and snow. At this moment, Su Chubster, however, could not calm down for a long time. His heart couldn't stop pounding. He felt that he had fallen deeply in love with Su Lily. He even had names for their future children in mind. This otaku, who had sworn never to be attracted to real-life women. He unexpectedly went against his own beliefs so easily. Su Chubster clenched his fist with determination. He would definitely protect the villagers of Su Village and provide Lily and their child with a stable environment. After returning home, Su Chubster had to think of a countermeasure. The two encounters made him deeply realize the fearsome nature of ZhangYi. But he promised Third Master to protect the village. Most importantly, he now has love. He cannot let that demon destroy his happiness. But today's battle will definitely anger him. If he decides to come and kill everyone in a fit of rage, what should the people in the village do? What should be done in the end? If they confront him head-on, they will certainly be instantly killed. After thinking it over, he believes that there is only one way to completely resolve the situation. That is negotiation. Thinking of this, Su Chubster was extremely excited. Although this idea is a bit dangerous, but for the whole Su family and his beloved Lily, he decided to go all in. Then he quickly came to the computer to start searching. Looking for the other party's contact information, his mind was crazy about imagining. Lily must really like me, right? After all, I saved her father's life. According to the development of TV dramas, she must have feelings for me. But actually, she was just purely expressing gratitude. The next morning, I cautiously left the house, tidying up the damaged trap, thinking that people from Su Village probably won't dare to come again. But we also need to guard against the possibility of a second wave of enemies coming. The threat to the shelter from ordinary people is almost zero. What we need to guard against are those who have awoken their supernatural abilities. Thinking about that ice snow abilities user, I still hold some admiration in my heart. After all, his style is somewhat similar to my own. They are all very afraid of death. However, since we cannot be used by others, we must take them out in advance. Awakening the ice snow abilities in the post-apocalyptic world of ice and snow. It's like a cheat in human form. If he grows up, it will definitely be a big problem. I finally started living a life of being embraced on the left and the right. Two women diligently helping me massage my legs and shoulders. I really enjoy this feeling. Jo Carroll has long been devoted to giving up on herself. After going through the battle in Su family village, Yang Mimi no longer holds out hope for the end of the world. She originally believed that the snow disaster was only temporary. One day the world will return to its original state. She will still be that dazzling superstar. However, After witnessing the tragic deaths of hundreds of people, her faith wavered. She chose to rely on the man in front of her. It's not just superficial perfunctory, but a heartfelt desire to get closer. Just at this moment, a phone call suddenly came in. I was startled, and instantly thought of Lu Fengda from before. I thought that my biggest secret had already been exposed. Who else could contact me? But this time, I was much calmer. I hesitated to open my phone. Before I could say anything, an excited voice came through. Hello, ZhangYi. I am Su Turali from the Su family village. Are you free now? I have something to discuss with you. When I heard that you are from the Su family village, I felt a surge of energy. After yesterday's attack, I have no good feelings towards their village. I am planning when to attack their village and wipe them out in one go. Su Turali continued speaking in his mind. I mean to say, can we reconcile? Let's live and let live in the future. I laughed when I heard this. I have never provoked you, but you have been picking fights all along. How come now that you realize you can't win, you want to make peace? You have quite an imagination. The Su chubster on the phone suddenly became nervous. He was already very afraid. 2 battles have occurred. He had long viewed the other party as a powerful god of death. Then, in a trembling voice, he meekly said, I am calling you recklessly this time to apologize to you. It's all the fault of our village. Can you please spare us simple villagers, considering that we have not caused any harm to you, while suffering heavy casualties ourselves? You can make any demands, as long as we can comply. I couldn't help but feel strange listening to the respectful tone of the other party. Sending someone to negotiate, why said a cowardly softa? It sounds like a rookie who has just entered society. Immediately he shouted and asked, You should first measure yourself. Do you really have the qualifications to represent your village? You haven't even sorted out your tongue. What makes you think so? Su Chubster also clearly identified himself. In fact, I'm the supernatural person you've dealt with twice. Upon hearing this, I instantly became serious. So it's you. Yes, it's me. In that case, do you think I'm qualified? I was thinking that if it's him, he does indeed have the qualifications for negotiations. After all, this is the only person one truly fears. The tone instantly became peaceful. You just said that as long as I agree to reconcile with you, you will be able to fulfill any of my requests, right? Su Chubster was hopeful as soon as he heard this. He responded with a silly smile, saying, As long as our village can do it, we will try our best to satisfy you. Having experienced this battle, Su Chubster can almost be certain that the opponent must have a large amount of goods from the Walmart warehouse in their hands. He must look down on the things in the village. I also feel that this Chubster is not stupid. The ice snow abilities he has can be considered a powerful weapon in the frozen apocalypse. If he could be recruited as a follower, he would definitely be very useful in the future. Then said seriously, I only want one thing. Su Turali's words startled Su Chubster. Terrified, he shouted with a trembling voice, I am straight. Don't act like this. I was speechless. Even Cho Carol and Yang Mimi beside me burst into laughter. Don't overthink it. I just think your ice snow abilities are very special. If you are really sincere and willing to negotiate, just come to my shelter in person for a visit. By the way, I am also emphasizing the tone. Otherwise, when I am not happy one day, I will destroy your village. I believe you are clear about this yourself. Your supernatural ability is completely ineffective against me. Destroying your village is as easy as turning my hand for me. Su Chubster stood up from the chair in fear, trembling all over. Don't get excited first. There's no benefit to you in destroying our village, right? And our village is closely connected with your villa area. In case there are outside enemies in the future, we can also help each other, right? I disdainfully said. Don't talk to me about enemies. Aren't you my biggest enemy now?